Have you ever left a conversation feeling smaller, like no matter what you said, you somehow lost? It's a strange feeling, isn't it? You went in with clarity, with words prepared, maybe even with truth on your side. You expressed yourself, you spoke, you defended your view, yet as you walked away, something in you felt defeated. As though your words, instead of strengthening you, had drained you. That knot in your throat afterward, that heavy silence inside, wasn't relief. It was regret. The subtle ache of realizing that in trying to win, you somehow gave away a piece of your power. Maybe it happened because the other voices in the room were louder. They interrupted. They mocked. They twisted your words before they even left your mouth. They dominated, not with truth, but with arrogance disguised as confidence. And the more they spoke, the more you felt yourself shrinking, suffocated by noise. And in that moment, maybe you believed the oldest lie. That silence is weakness. That not defending yourself is surrender. That not reacting means you've already lost. But here's the paradox: what if that belief is the trap itself? The trap of noise. What if true strength has never lived in words at all, but in the absence of them? Most people don't realize this because society conditions us otherwise. From childhood, we are told, speak up. Defend yourself. Fight back. Don't let anyone walk over you. The loudest voice is rewarded, the most aggressive argument crowned as victory. But Nietzsche, one of history's most misunderstood philosophers, saw through the illusion. He recognized a truth most people fear to admit: those who scramble to convince are already weak. The one who speaks less holds more. Because silence is not emptiness, it is presence. And presence unsettles. Think of nature. The lion does not roar when the gazelle approaches. He waits. Still. Silent. His presence alone paralyzes. Only when the moment is perfect does he move. Contrast that with the barking of smaller animals, noise masking insecurity. The same is true in human interaction. The louder someone argues, the more fragile their truth. The more someone needs to explain, the less secure they are in their position. The more words they throw, the more they reveal. And yet silence, real, deliberate silence, destabilizes. It forces others to confront themselves, because suddenly, there's nothing to push against but their own reflection. Silence as weapon. This message is for you, the one who always leaves feeling unheard. The one tired of being the nice one, the peacekeeper, the easy target. For years you may have mistaken your silence for submission. You thought keeping quiet was cowardice, that by not engaging you were being erased. But the truth is this: silence, when mastered, is not weakness. It is the sharpest weapon you will ever wield. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence that commands respect. Because real victory isn't found in winning arguments. Real victory is never needing to argue at all. Why we react. So why do we feel this burning urge to respond, to explain, to correct, to prove ourselves right? Because we've been conditioned to believe that if we don't, someone else's lie will win. We equate silence with surrender, with being overpowered. But Nietzsche knew better. He saw that this compulsion to explain isn't strength, it's fear. And behind that fear is something even more fragile: the ego. The fragile ego trembles at the thought of being misunderstood. It hears disagreement as a personal attack. It believes every silence is judgment, every rejection is humiliation. And so, it fights. It talks. It scrambles to prove itself. But here is the cruel truth: most people don't argue for truth. They argue for power. They don't want clarity. They want control. They don't speak because their beliefs are strong, they speak because their beliefs are fragile. That is why your silence terrifies them. The weakness of argument. Argument, in this sense, is not a weapon of wisdom. It is a shield of weakness. Every desperate explanation is a cry from the ego: please, see me. Please, validate me. Please, confirm I exist. And every time you feel that urge to justify yourself, you have already given ground. You've shown that their approval still matters to you. That you still want to be understood. That you are still chained to their opinion. Nietzsche called this herd morality. The desperate desire to be seen as good, correct, just. The morality of those who live for approval. But the need for approval is the very chain that keeps you powerless. True power. True power is not convincing others. It is not needing to. It is standing unmoved while others laugh, criticize, reject, and remaining untouchable. This is not about verbal victory. This is inner mastery. A calm presence while everyone else loses control. A stillness so heavy it shifts the dynamic without a word. The reactive mind is a captured mind. But the silent observer? He is free. He is the dangerous one. The one who sees more by saying less. Nietzsche gave this figure a name, the Übermensch. The higher man. The Übermensch. The Übermensch does not waste energy on defense or justification. He does not beg to be understood. He bends the world in silence. He dominates not with noise, but with presence. And when he finally does speak, it is devastating. One line from him outweighs 1,000 from the herd. This is the silence of command. The silence of someone who cannot be bent by fear, guilt, or the need for validation. In a world addicted to noise, the one who controls silence becomes untouchable. Two silences. But here is the critical distinction: silence is not neutral. There are two kinds. The silence of submission, the silence that bleeds you dry. The silence of fear, avoidance, and erasure. The silence that masquerades as peace but costs you your self-respect. And the silence of presence, the silence that radiates power. The silence that presses on others like a weight. The silence that cracks masks and exposes weakness. One is slavery. The other is sovereignty. The difference lies not in the world, but in you. The 4 weapons of silence. There are 4 weapons of silence. Master them, and no one will ever control you again. Weapon 1, restraint. The first battle is internal. Your ego burns to respond, to defend, to fight back. But every time you hold your tongue, you break the chain. You kill the need to be understood. And in that death, you find freedom. Weapon 2, observation. While others rush to fill the void, you watch. You listen like a predator listens in the dark. You catch every tremor, every contradiction, every hidden fear. And when you strike, it is with precision, not emotion. Weapon 3, time. Most people cannot endure silence. Pauses terrify them. They rush to break it. But if you can stretch silence, let it hang heavy, they collapse under their own impatience. A glance, a pause, an unmoved stillness can cut deeper than 10 arguments. Weapon 4, unpredictability. The greatest power is to be unreadable. When people cannot predict whether you will speak or remain silent, they become cautious. They measure every word. They orbit around you, because your silence has made you the gravitational center of the room. This is silence as power. Silence as dominance. Silence as presence. The false virtue of silence. But beware. The world will praise you for being the bigger person, the calm one, the peacemaker. Yet often, this is not maturity. It is submission dressed as virtue. Nietzsche named it slave morality. A morality built by the weak to survive among the strong. It glorifies meekness, obedience, shrinking. It convinces you that erasing yourself is goodness. But there is nothing good about surrender. True silence does not erase you. It expands you. It commands without effort. It reshapes the air in the room. The less you explain, the more people assume you know. The less you justify, the more they believe you. The less you react, the more the world bends toward you. The few who rise. Most men will never reach this silence. They will live and die in noise, always defending, always explaining, always begging to be understood. Their lives will be one long plea for validation. They will die as echoes. But a few, those who master silence, those men rise. They rise above petty arguments. They rise above manipulation. They rise above the fragile egos that need constant validation. Their silence becomes legend. Their presence bends reality. Their stillness shakes the ground. And in that moment, when you no longer need words to prove yourself, when your silence alone commands, you have crossed Nietzsche's threshold. You have become the higher man. The final refusal. So remember this the next time someone provokes you. Remember it when they demand your defense. Remember it when they throw words like knives, waiting for you to bleed. Do nothing. Stand tall. Stay silent. Because silence is the sharpest weapon. Silence is the final refusal. And silence is the moment they realize they never had power over you at all. Conclusion: the ultimate mastery of silence. Silence is not simply the absence of words. It is the presence of power. It is the quiet authority that unsettles the loud, the clarity that exposes the uncertain, and the unshakable core that bends the world around it without a single uttered syllable. To understand the full gravity of silence, one must first strip away the cultural and psychological illusions that have been layered onto it. We are conditioned from birth to fear it, to fill it, to treat it as a vacuum that must be completed by noise. Our parents, teachers, society, all have drilled into us the notion that to remain quiet in the face of challenge is to surrender. And yet, in that very surrender, we lose something far more precious than the superficial victories of speech. We lose the core of our own sovereignty. The quiet man, or the higher man, as Nietzsche would call him, is a paradox to the untrained mind. He appears still, unmoved, unreadable. To the observer, it may seem that he is passive, disinterested, or even powerless. But in reality, he is the very opposite. His silence is deliberate. It is chosen. It is the strategic weapon of someone who has mastered himself, someone who has understood that words are only tools, and that over-reliance on them signals weakness. The world reacts not to his voice, but to the gravity of his presence. His silence is not emptiness, it is suffocating fullness, a space so charged with certainty that others feel compelled to fill it with their own insecurities, contradictions, and lies. This is the first lesson: silence is a mirror. Every unspoken word forces reflection. When you do not respond to provocation, when you withhold your explanation, the other person is left to wrestle with themselves. This is unbearable for most because they are not speaking from strength, they are speaking from fragility. Their voice is their shield, their explanations their defense mechanism, and every pause you create chips away at that defense. In silence, the truth of their insecurity is revealed. The lies unravel. The weak cannot tolerate it, the strong respect it. And yet, to master silence requires more than simply withholding words. It requires mastery over oneself. It requires ego discipline, the ability to let go of the compulsive need to be understood, validated, or accepted. Every instinct in us screams to defend, to justify, to assert. The reactive mind interprets disagreement as attack, misinterpretation as judgment, and conflict as a threat to survival. This is why most men are trapped in the cycle of constant verbal engagement, forever explaining, forever pleading to be seen, forever losing pieces of themselves in the process. The higher man transcends this. He understands that the herd, the masses conditioned by fear, morality of approval, and fragile egos, mistakes reaction for dominance. They believe that loudness equals strength, that quickness to retort signals mastery. Nietzsche, in his piercing insight, reveals the error of this belief. The one who scrambles to convince is already weak, the one who remains still commands in a way that no words could ever replicate. This is the Übermensch in practice, not reactive, not performative, not caught in the trivial theater of approval, but sovereign in presence. Silence is also a weapon precisely because it is unpredictable. When someone cannot predict your response, their mind begins to operate in uncertainty. They measure their words, their tone, their expressions. They overcompensate. They reveal more than they intend. And each moment of your quiet observation accumulates like invisible weight. Slowly, subtly, without ever raising your voice, you dominate the interaction. You bend reality not by coercion, but by inertia. The world leans into your stillness because it cannot ignore it. Consider the psychology behind this. Humans are not wired to endure prolonged silence in confrontational contexts. Our amygdala, the seat of fear and threat response, fires in moments of uncertainty. When someone remains unmoved, unreadable, and silent, it triggers anxiety, self-doubt, and compulsion to act. Most manipulators, liars, and narcissists rely entirely on the reaction of others to maintain control. Remove that reaction, and their power evaporates. Silence becomes the blade that cuts invisibly but lethally. You do not need to strike, the collapse occurs from within them. This is the second lesson: silence does not merely defend, it attacks, disarms, and destabilizes, all without exposure of your own vulnerabilities. Yet mastery of silence is not merely a tactical exercise. It is philosophical, ethical, and existential. It is rooted in the understanding that life itself is a negotiation between forces we cannot control and a self we must master. Words are fleeting. Opinions are cheap. Validation is ephemeral. Only presence, cultivated through disciplined silence, is enduring. Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch is inseparable from this idea. The higher man does not rely on the world's acknowledgement, nor does he seek to dominate through coercion or argument. He transcends the petty moralities of the herd. He commands, not by demand, but by embodying a self-sufficiency so complete that it radiates outward, shaping the space and the interactions around him. This is why silence can be revolutionary. It is a rebellion against the incessant, superficial demands of the world. It is a refusal to participate in the meaningless exchange of approval, justification, and argument. It is a declaration: I exist, and I need no validation. And in that refusal, the higher man does not merely survive, he transforms the dynamics of every environment he enters. Silence shifts balance. It rewrites expectation. It reorders perception. There is a danger, however, and it must be acknowledged. Not all silence is mastery. Many people suffer in the quiet, mistaking it for strength when it is actually surrender. They swallow their anger, avoid conflict, and shrink to fit others' comfort zones. They allow the world to dictate the terms of engagement and live lives of quiet erosion. Nietzsche calls this slave morality, a morality that glorifies obedience, meekness, and self-denial as virtue. The tragedy is that such people believe they are righteous, when in fact they are trapped. Their silence is a chain, their restraint a cage. True mastery flips this entirely. Mastery transforms silence from a mask of fear into a mantle of power. It is not the absence of engagement, it is the presence of authority. Each pause, each withheld word, each unmoved gaze communicates something words could never express: control, certainty, and self-possession. It is a language understood by the psyche rather than the ears, by intuition rather than logic. To cultivate this level of silence, the higher man employs four essential weapons: restraint, observation, time, and unpredictability. Restraint is the foundation. It is the conscious decision to resist the primal urge to react. Every instinct that demands speech is met with disciplined stillness. In this restraint, you reclaim autonomy from the ego that seeks validation. You prove that your inner equilibrium is independent of external chaos. Observation follows naturally. While others rush to fill space with words, you listen, watch, and analyze. You detect subtle shifts, contradictions in tone, microexpressions, hidden intentions. You gather power not from speaking, but from perceiving, understanding, and waiting for the perfect moment to act, if necessary. Time is mastery over perception. Silence stretched over moments becomes weighty, almost unbearable to the unprepared. It allows you to bend the impatience of others to your will. Where most feel compelled to fill voids immediately, you exploit the tension that arises naturally, and the world bends quietly in response. Unpredictability is the final weapon. Once mastered, silence makes you unreadable. Others cannot anticipate your moves, your words, or your reactions. They tread carefully, adjust their behavior, and become influenced by your presence alone. In this way, silence transforms into sovereignty, the ultimate demonstration of power.